Big show coming up, Hammer. We're talking NBA scoring records, trades, and the Bucks sack their head coach.
And we go in depth and we analyse who's going to make the playoffs, who makes the play-ins in the NBL, and will the refs give Aaron Baines a fair go?
Let's get into it.
This is the Basketball Show with Shane the Hammer Heel. What they gonna say next?
Hey guys, this is the Basketball Show, all thanks to Code Sports, Boost Mobile, and the Throwback store. Hammer, how you doing this week?
Very good, Joe. Big time in the NBL season. Lots to discuss and looking forward to getting into it.
Exactly. Upsets galore. Plenty of trade movement as well in the NBA, so we'll get into that. Before we do start, though, shout out to Boost Mobile. They're having a big back-to-school sale until the 29th of January. You can get 12 months of data for $320, $45 off, the best value, full coverage across the Telstra network. So get into that. We love Boost Mobile support as well. Really appreciate them being involved in the show. So shout out to those guys. But Hammer, let's get into it. Hammer, time for our starting five. We're talking Brisbane and the Taipans, a.k.a. Aaron Baines up against Lat Mayen. We know that they've got some history. Things got pretty tense again when they played last round. But you want to highlight a few things from that one?
Well, I mean, I want to start with saying I was pretty hard on Aaron Baines and his reaction when he got his suspension and a deserved suspension. But the referees needed to be on guard with this. Mayen hasn't played a big role. And if we have a look at the highlight and the incident that happened, Baines' teammate is still dribbling the ball when Mayen's turned his back on the play, starts to make contact, holding Baines. He initiates all the contact. Baines has got his eye on being able to get to the offensive rebound. And the whole time he's been held. A call needs to be made. And then all of a sudden they don't call anything until there's Baines reacting from 3, 4, 5 seconds or whatever it is of being held. I mean, it was a really poor incident, I think, for the NBL referees. It should have been all over that.
Well, Adam Ford's also come out and talked about the fact that, you know, he's been pretty unimpressed with the referees. It was super sarcastic in that presser the other night after they beat the Hawks. Is it something that you think the NBL is doing enough to try and address?
I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I mean, I'm sort of in the middle here because, you know, the coaches have an opportunity to be able to, you know, call the referees out when they're making mistakes by challenging. So if they continually make mistakes and they handle those right, then, you know, they may get 4 or 5. I don't know what the record is for the most, you know, wrong calls they've been able to challenge, but they continually be able to get that done. I was just talking about this incident and they got it wrong. They needed to be better and had to go to the video. And I still don't think they got it right when they went to the video.
All right, talking Southeast Melbourne now. They cannot catch a break. They've had a whole lot of injury issues throughout the season. Obviously, imports coming and going as well. Alan Williams, shout out to Big Sauce. He's had surgery. He's out for the rest of the season. Their season is done, is it not?
Yeah, but you feel way more lenient on them. Like, how are we blaming their season on injuries? I mean, Source is a big loss. There's no doubt. You know, but they're the ones who changed their imports. I think this has been a disaster for Southeast Melbourne. I felt like the team they put together should have been so much better. I can't give them a pass this season on the way they've been able to handle it. And I feel like it's the same thing happening year after year. You know, Mitchell wasn't able to get it done and he ended up not being re-signed, and now Kelly's in there. And I feel like the same thing's happening. What's going on with Southeast Melbourne? There's something that's not right.
So what is it? What's the common denominator?
I don't know. I don't know what it is. But they've underachieved again. And I don't think you can blame it. It's not a cop-out saying it's injuries, because other teams have had, you know, more injury problems than what these guys have had. Have played, you know, way better. Have a look at New Zealand. Have a look at Melbourne. Melbourne is still getting it done. They've had 2 starters out. They still get it done. They're not relying on injuries. And so I don't know what's going on, but they've got to ask themselves that question and try and fix some things because it's lingering.
Well, the season is still going. They do have an opportunity to try and turn things around. Can't see it happening, but internally, hopefully, they're trying to stay positive, and who knows what will happen.
They're the bottom team, Joe. They're the bottom team, Jojo. They're the bottom team in the NBL this season. All right, with that talented squad, it should not happen. So we'll see how it plays out, but that's the way it's heading.
Plenty of players putting their name up for the most improved player of the year. You've got a smoky for us, though. Talk to me.
Yeah, Joe. I mean, I want to talk about Hiram Harris, and there's going to be other players that probably have bigger improvement in points and rebounds and everything else, but probably no one's had a bigger impact in their role. And this is a guy that over the years hasn't found a way to have a consistent role, let alone on a team that has a chance to be able to in serious compete for a championship. He has made a huge difference. His effort in rebounding, his screening. Bryce Cotton's become a better player since his injection in the starting five as well. And I think his impact on getting wins is more important than the statistical side of what Hiram Harris is doing. I've been really impressed, and well done to John Rillie for taking a more talented player out of the starting lineup, putting a role player in, because the balance has made it all work for them.
Yeah, it's been great to see him doing really well. I'd put Tanner Krebs in the same sort of conversation at Melbourne as well. I think he's had an awesome impact for them this season. Let's talk about the Hawks and Justin Tatum. It feels like it's a general consensus now that he should remain at the club as the head coach. They haven't obviously made that decision or signed the paperwork, or at least we don't know about it if they have. They have a really tough run home, though. Do you think that they should wait and see this out, or do you think they should be making that move now?
I think for both sides, they need to get it done. I think Tatum's done really well, and I think he's carried himself really well. The way he's spoken, the way his team's been able to react after he came in as the head coach. So I think he's proven himself. And the danger for me is that they're going to go down the gurgler from here. They've stubbed their toe, Jojo. The fairy tale of them coming good is finished. They lost 2 on the weekend, and they just look like it's petering out. And I don't think that they should then get to the situation, if they go on a downward spiral and they finish in the bottom 2, that then they're starting to second guess themselves. So I reckon get it done, and I think it works for both parties.
They still have 7 games remaining, but included in that is Melbourne United and the Wildcats twice. So we'll see what happens there. And very quickly, just want to talk about a couple of the Aussies over there in the NBA. Dyson Daniels, I think it was Zach Lowe the other day that said something along the lines of like, Daniel, when Dyson's on the floor with Herb Jones, you cannot dribble the ball. He'd literally, stop you in a grocery store or something to that effect. But really nice sort of props for him and what he's doing. Josh Giddey, he's being rewarded for when he's playing out there and having good numbers. He's up to the 30-minute mark again, which is great to see. Paddy's played the last 3 games as well, which is awesome. And Duop Reith, again, he's still on this 2-way, but he is absolutely killing it for the Blazers. No, they're not winning at the moment, but he is putting himself in really good stead to really get picked up, isn't he?
Well, he's taking the opportunity that's been presented in a pretty bad team. And right now he's outplaying Ayton, who is ridiculously talking about max deals and things like that because, a 2-way player has outplayed him. So well done to him. All positive signs, though, for the Boomers, Jojo. We're in an Olympic year, so we love seeing all of those Aussies over there doing well and, showing us what might be.
Yeah, I also miss Josh Green and Dante when he's out there and not injured as well. So, as you say, great signs, and hopefully the boys can keep with that trajectory as they head towards Paris.
Any hope of Ben Simmons being able to get back and play some basketball, Joe?
Hey, there is talk that he is not too far away. You get the feeling that the Nets will take a pretty conservative approach with Ben, given his history. But hey, we look forward to the day.
Yes, we do.
5.
These are your Hoops highlights thanks to Boost Mobile this week. It's Marcus Lee getting us going.
Luke 40, take that one.
Well, he's in no man's land.
4.
Hawks on the bounce. Yeka throws it down.
DeJounte sets this up because he pauses him right there. Allows Onyeka to come there. Trey Young Basically tries to take the
3.
Here comes De'Aaron Fox. Trade for JaVale. Oh, JaVale McGee with the hammer.
There's one thing JaVale McGee can do. He can pump up a crowd, and he slams this down right here. Hangs on the rim, has something to say about it. The crowd totally.
2.
Nurk with the rock. Finds Durant, raising up for the win. Got the lead, but there is 1.6 on the clock.
Great pass here from Nurkic. You kind of wish there was no time left, right?
1.
Wants it back, drops the shoulder, step back, couldn't finish. They've still got time though. Here's the shot for the win! For the win! Get to it! The Taipans and Latmayan break the hearts of the Hawks.
There's Abu the other way.
Latmayan with the dagger, and with that, Hammer reckons the Hawk season is over. Those are your Hoops highlights this week, thanks to Boost Mobile. Time for Points Made now with the Mayor of Brisbane himself, Derek Rucker. D, how you doing this week?
I'm great, Joe. Hammer, what's up?
Yeah, all good, mate. Ready for this.
Big news in the NBA, guys. The Bucks have sacked their head coach, Adrian Griffin. They are second in the East, 30-13 on the season. This feels like something behind the scenes is going wrong for them to have made such a drastic change.
Shane, I don't know what's going on there, but there's been instability all throughout the season. And this guy's only started. He's 30-13. Ultimately, Shane, Giannis must have been like, nah, this ain't working for me. We got to change this. That's the only way that this would get done right now.
Well, you've got to question the Bucks management, surely. I mean, they sacked Bud last year. They go to the market, they do their research, come up with a guy that they think is going to take them forward for the next handful of years, and have the record, as you say, 30-13, and then get rid of him before the All-Star break. I mean, that's on management. You haven't made the right decisions before. Have they made it now? What's going on in the locker room? Who knows?
Well, there was word that Adrian Griffin was Antetokounmpo's guy, right? And this probably leads back to your LeBron theory and don't let players be GMs. Now, you've got to go back against Giannis, or either Giannis has gone in there, scratched his head to ownership, and said, hey, I may have gotten this wrong. We got to get rid of this guy. But the big winner could be Doc Rivers. I'd love to see Doc Rivers coach that team.
Time to talk a little bit of trade. Miami. They've traded Kyle Lowry and a 2027 first-round pick for Terry Rozier. I feel like it's sort of like for like from a defensive point of view. Rozier adds a little bit of a sort of kick from an offensive point of view at the moment. How do we feel about this trade?
Well, obviously, Joe, we feel a lot better than you. Why are you so sad? Miami will still have a chance. You can get down there for the playoffs. Just because Lowry was your guy and a dog and all that stuff, Joe, I hate to break it to you. He is cooked. He's washed. He's done. They needed some fresh legs in there, and Terry Rozier is going to give them that. Now, Joe, you have a real chance to go somewhere with this Miami team. I still think there's one move left, though, Hammer. I don't think this is enough.
Yeah, and you're right about my man. I mean, he's a great player, has had a great career, but he just looks stale. He looks like he just doesn't get involved at the offensive end. He doesn't need to be a superstar, and he's better than what his stats were. There's no doubt about that. But it looked like he was disinterested at the offensive end and needed to show a little bit more. So we'll see what happens for him.
Yeah, okay. I agree with D. I think we Miami, need a big, but we'll see how that goes. Pascal Siakam, he's had a couple of games with the Pacers now. Kind of difficult to see where he's at and how he fits in, given that Tyrese hasn't really been fully fit and back with the team. How do you think that this will work once they do have that full cohort back?
I like their crew. Once they have everybody in there, Siakam gives you a little bit of a lift on the defensive end. Also, he's a really underrated defender, and that's where we know the Pacers need help bad. But if they can continue to perform at a high offensive rate, we know the formula to winning is with good defense. But Shane, they don't have the talent of some of the other teams, so they may as well just go with the philosophy now. Like, just try and outscore everybody and see and take that as far as it can go and ride that all the way. Ride Halliburton, ride Siakam, and try and do something different until perhaps in a couple of years you can build a more traditional championship contending team.
Well, I mean, I think he's going to be a great fit. There's no doubt about that. He's going to score a lot of points. I think he's a great complement to the other pieces that they've got. And I don't think you just write off the defensive end. They've still got to make improvements, and they can make improvements. I think his length's going to be able to help them. And if they make those improvements, can other teams stay with them? But they probably just don't have enough this year to be able to win a championship or seriously compete for a championship.
Speaking of scoring, there have been some ridiculous numbers being put up recently. Joel with a 70-piece, Kat had 62, I think KD had, 43 or something on the same day. What is going on, first of all? And secondly, who is the best scorer in the game right now?
That's tough. Wow. That's a tough one. But you'd have to look at Joel Embiid, Luka Doncic. Those guys put up numbers every night. They're really consistent. They're getting about 33, 34, 35 points a game. But I think Embiid has that upside because he can get inside and he's so physically dominant, Shane. He gets to the free throw line, and he's got the mindset also. You scored 61 in a game. You know what it takes to go out there and be really aggressive and really sharp. But let's talk about Cat yesterday. Is that not the most Cat thing ever? To score 62, have 44 at the half, but your team loses an 18-point lead late in the third quarter. You finish with 62, but you bomb out at the end and can't get any buckets to help your team win. That is Cat in all his greatness and in all his flaws.
That is so true. But, I've got a bit of a different take about that with Minnesota. And I know the coach frowned upon it and he said they disrespected the game. And I saw Anthony Edwards in his interview and he put his hand up and he said he shouldn't have done it. But my take on that is that it's actually a positive. Anthony Edwards is a superstar of the league. He is somebody that is going to be one of the greats of this era. And he was happy to be able to sit back and be joyful for his teammate to go and get 60 points. There's a lot of stars in this league that aren't prepared to be able to do that and aren't happy for their teammates and are more pissed that they're not in the limelight and getting the shots themselves. So I think it's a positive for the T-Wolves long term.
That's really true, especially in this era. We hear so many stories about the selfishness and guys wanting to be all about them. But can we talk about the coach, Chris Finch? Where's your accountability in all this, pal? You were playing the Charlotte Hornets and you let them come back on you. Where were your defensive adjustments? You let them put 128 up on you. And you're talking about the players? I don't like that either, Shane.
And fair enough, too.
All right, time to go in depth. We are talking the road home for each of the NBL teams, Hammer. We'll kick it off with the top two. Melbourne and Perth, we essentially know that this is going to be the case. But talk to me about their run home and how you see that playing out.
Well, they are going to be the top two teams. They've been the class teams for the majority of the season. Melbourne from the very start of the season, and now Perth being on this huge run that they've been on, and probably the hottest team in the league with the way they've been playing. Now, it's conceivable that Perth could get top spot, but probably unlikely just because that Melbourne's got the head-to-head. They've already won the series 2-1. So I think it's going to end up Melbourne-Perth, but it'd be very difficult for anyone to get in that top two other than those two teams, Jojo.
No, I think I agree with you there. This is where it gets interesting, though. The Jack Jumpers and Bullets make up the top four at the moment. Whether it finishes that way is another question. So the Jack Jumpers road home, they've got the Breakers, Taipans, 36ers, Phoenix, and Wildcats. Not terrible. The Bullets, they've only got 4 left. So that's the sort of key for them. They've got Melbourne United, the Hawks, 36ers, and Breakers. They will look at that and say, we need at least 3 of those 4, right?
Yeah, at least 3. So I've actually got Sydney and Tasmania finishing in 3rd and 4th spot. Sydney's got a really good run home. They play Southeast Melbourne twice. They've got Melbourne at home, Adelaide away, and then the Hawks also at home. So I think they've got a really favourable draw. I think that there's an opportunity for them to win at least 3 of those, maybe more. And Tasmania, I think, will make up that top 4. They've just got, a game advantage already over Brisbane. They've got an extra game they have to play, and I think they've got more winnable games. But in saying that, some of those games are 50-50, like at New Zealand. That's going to be a really tough game. At Cairns, tough one. Versus Adelaide at home, I think they'll beat Southeast Melbourne, and then they verse Perth in the last round. So, it's going to be intriguing how this all rolls out at the end of the season.
You talk about 50-50 games. I don't think I would ever put a head-to-head bet on across this entire league. Like, day to day, you do not know who's going to come out on top. So you've got the Kings and Jack Jumpers making up the top 4. So Bullets, Taipans, Breakers, and the Hawks, which previously in the show you've already ruled out. So who makes the play-in then, and who misses out?
Well, I think, Brisbane are playing some really good basketball. You can't help but be really impressed and think that they deserve an opportunity to be a play-in team and challenge the 3rd and 4th team. So I've got them making it. And New Zealand's got the advantage because they've got more games up their sleeve. They still have to play Tassie, Illawarra, Perth, Illawarra, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide. A lot of winnable games there, but some tough games as well, competing against teams that are trying to make that top 4 or playing games. But I think with the talent that New Zealand's got and now being back at full strength, I think they're going to have opportunities to go on a little bit of a run and I think get themselves into that play-in spot. And I think this is why the play-ins so valuable and so important to the NBL, because it keeps teams like New Zealand that have been decimated with injuries for so long, so many key players out for extended periods of time. If they get things going, they've got the talent to, make the play-in and then seriously compete to be able to get involved in the playoffs.
Well, I mean, we touted them at the beginning of the season as potentially being back in the finals as they were last year. Haven't lived up to that completely, obviously, to this point. But as you say, they've had some hurdles along the way. The last day of the regular season, the 18th of February, we've got Melbourne United and the Hawks and 36ers and the Breakers. Again, both of those games no doubt will have implications on where these teams are finishing. But it just speaks to how tight the league is again.
Well, it has. And, I think with the changes of the coaches and now bringing Illawarra and Adelaide, some form has come with those teams that's made it so interesting. And again, when I talk about having the play-in 2 spots available, it keeps everybody, all of the teams are involved to be able to try and make the either play-in or playoffs. And, we know that the top 2 spots are the most critical because they get the first week off. They don't have to participate. Those next 2 spots become critical as well. So there's layers in this finals format that make it very exciting.
So you've got your top 4 and play-in teams. Who then makes the playoffs sort of proper?
After that, well, that's going to be really interesting because, as I said, I think if New Zealand can get to that play-in spot, they've got the talent to upset either Tasmania or the Kings if they get that opportunity. They'd first have to go through Brisbane with the way I've got it out, and Brisbane are a tough team. But I think they've certainly got they've got enough talent, New Zealand, to be able to do it. But yet to be seen, they have to go on the run that some of these other teams have been able to get done. And as we know, coming into the playoffs, it's all about momentum. It's all about form. We've seen that with the Perth Wildcats. They've brought so much momentum in at the right time of the season. It doesn't matter how you start, Joe. It's how you finish. That's what we remember.
And have you definitely written the Taipans off? I know they've only got 4 left. 36ers, Jack Jumpers, Wildcats, Melbourne United. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, you can't write them out totally, but I think when you look at the probability of what's going to happen, I think it's going to be tough for them. And, they've done well to sort of get to this level, I think, because they started so poorly after going to the States. So, they've been competitive, but I think they're going to fall short this season.
Alrighty, Tom Hirsch is in to talk SuperCoach NBL. Tom, we are getting down to the business end of the season. What have you got for us this week?
Yeah, most Supercoach leagues start their finals this week, so you're playing to win your league from here on out, which means every trade you make is really important. So just focus on what you have to do to win this week, and that means looking at who's on the doubles this week: Illawarra, Melbourne, New Zealand, Perth, Southeast Melbourne, and Sydney. So no more Adelaide, no more Brisbane, no more Cairns, no more Tasmania, and that means if you've got Bryce Cotton, as we've said before, you're playing him, you're putting the captain tag on him, and you're hoping he leads you to a win and you advance in your league next week. If for whatever reason you can't afford Bryce Cotton, there's a few other good options, and I'd be looking number one at Jalen Adams from the Sydney Kings this week. He's been in great form. Obviously, we know he had that massive game the other week, and they've got the double. From Illawarra, Gary Clark and Sam Froling, as we spoke about. And then from Melbourne United, there's a few intriguing options, and the caveat to that is we still don't know whether Joe Luala-Chul Jr. is going to be back this week or Shea Ely is going to be back, but Luke Travers could give you some really good value there, as could Matthew Dellavedova in the form that he's been in, and obviously Chris Golding, we know he's been sensational all year. So plenty of options to consider this week, but it's all about winning and advancing to get on and try and win your league.
So, Tom, I'm very excited because I thought it was only total scores. And as you well know, that yourself and Strempel are a little bit ahead of the rest of the basketball show crew. So this means that we're still in it. We potentially can beat you. We're rookies. We've got no idea. You're the experts, but we're still in the game.
Yeah, you said it, potentially. In theory, yes, you've got a chance to beat us. Absolutely. The total points for the season today doesn't matter anymore. It's all about winning your matchup. Strempel and I have the bye this week in the finals in our league, so you're battling out with Ruck, and yeah, you and Joe have a chance to advance and meet us in the semi-finals next week. But based on the form you guys have shown, I don't really like your chances of getting past us, but you never know.
That was definitely my next question. I want to know your prediction. Let me speak properly for the basketball shows group. I want to know who's going to be there in the final. And secondly, if you've got any smokies for us this week.
Well, I think Hammer's probably going to take care of Ruck based on form. I think he's just been a bit more engaged and taking it a bit more seriously this week. And Joe, I reckon you're a sneaky chance to advance. I know you've been putting in the work behind the scenes, so hopefully a little bit of luck goes your way and you'll meet us in the semis next week. But in terms of some smokies, I did mention Ty Webster last week, and he continues to be great value. His price has gone up a bit, but he's in sensational form. One of his teammates, though, Hiram Harris, had a fantastic weekend last week. He's really cheap if you need to save some money on your bench to potentially upgrade to a Bryce Cotton, for example. He's just $136,000. And then another really good option is Denzel Valentine from the Sydney Kings. He's a little pricey at around $246K. His form's been a little bit up and down, but he's been pretty good of late. Well over 30 Supercoach points his last couple games. And I think Sydney's poised to make a little bit of a run from here on out. So he might be one you consider as well.
Love it. I love that we're getting down to the business end of the season for SuperCoach NBL. Tom, thank you so much. Hammer, good luck this week. It sounds like you're going to need it. And we'll check in again. We'll check in again next week.
Thanks, mate.
That's just about all we've got time for. The basketball show, as always, brought to you by Code Sports, Boost Mobile, and the Throwback store. Hammer, another big week of hoops coming up. Is there anything in particular that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I can't wait for the Tasmania versus New Zealand game this week. I think that's going to be like a playoff intensity game. Big ramifications for both teams too. So we're getting to the money time of the year for the NBL, which is very exciting.
The pointy end, most definitely. I can't wait to see the Kings this week. They desperately need to bounce back. So looking forward to that. I'll be there Sunday as well for that game against Melbourne United. It's going to be a big one. Hammer, as always, it's been a pleasure. Thank you guys all for watching, and we'll catch you next week.
This is a co-production by News Corp Australia and Closer Sports.